Warning. This program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions. With your host, Berzerker, this is Unshackled Fury.
It's been an insane week to be a Warcraft player. There's so much going on, I can't keep my head straight. But welcome back to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions, Unshackled Fury. I'm your host, Berzerker. This is episode 99. And today we're diving headfirst into all the huge news from the newly announced Shadowlands Patch 9.2 Eternity's End, deciphering what the future holds, based on some new dev interviews, and some of the latest with Activision Blizzard's leadership and cultural reckoning. But first, happy anniversary, everybody. That's right. World of Warcraft, 17 years old. 17 years of World of Warcraft. It's another year goes by, blows my mind that we're still here. This thing is still kicking, and they're talking about another decade of hijinks here in Azeroth and beyond. So, yes, by the time you listen to this, or near about thereof, the anniversary edition of World of Warcraft will be live. There's always a little event going on in game. So this year, from November 15th to December 6th, you will get an achievement for logging in. Hooray! God, I love the easy ones. You will also receive an anniversary gift package. This has kind of become the customary thing where you'll get some Time Warp badges, 200 I believe. You will get to go down to a party at the Caverns of Time, hang out with Chromie, get some buffs, experience and rep buffs. Looks like a 17% gain here, so that's fantastic. Talk to a few folks down there. They'll give you some quests. There's all kinds of goodies going on. If I recall from last year or recent years, they had these little things that you could click on and watch all the old cinematics and kind of relive the story of Warcraft up to now. And they'll bring back some classic bosses. You'll get to get some old gear, old looking gear for transmog, because who doesn't love some of the classic transmog? Go kick Lord Kazak's ass. Azergos. And, relive the old days. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And I'm going to tell you not to do it, but we're going to live some of the old days once again. So go down and defeat some classic bosses. You'll get weapons, armor, and there will also be an opportunity to go back to Alterac Valley of Oldie, spelled with an E. I don't know how many people really like the Alterac Valley of Old, because it lasted a long fucking time. I was not around when that was the case, but I have heard the stories from the old timers that it was a bitch and took a long time. So experience that, I guess. Yeah, that's what we'll do. So head on down to the Caverns of Time. Enjoy yourselves. 17 years, World of Warcraft. It also is another recent date. So just for clarity's sake, the actual release date, I believe, for World of Warcraft was November 23rd, 2004. Another big day. November's kind of a big month for Warcraft. November 13th, also a big day. And credit to Wowhead for putting all this together. On that date, we had patch 2.3, The Gods of Zul'Aman, which was, I think, like the first big content patch I ever experienced. I had no fucking idea what was going on. They're like, Gods of Zul'Aman, what about Black Temple? I saw something about this guy in Outland, and it's Illidan something. Like, what, this trolls in a bear mount? What is this? But yes, we had on November 13th, 2007, the Gods of Zul'Aman patch 2.3 released. Also on that same day, the greatest expansion of all time, the Wrath of the Lich King, or just Wrath of the Lich King, there is no though. November 13th, 2008. What a great day. Never forget standing in line with my homie Rommel, waiting at a GameStop in a long line while it rained to get the collector's edition, which at the time just felt amazing. Also on that date, November 13, 2014, is when Warlords of Draenor released. Maybe a little lesser loved, but potentially a very important expansion for the future, depending on some of the rumors I've heard about the Light deciding it's time to kick some ass and come out of nowhere and do some crazy stuff. And it could go back to Iriel, who we have an alternate version of, going back and doing some kind of gnarly stuff. So Warlords of Draenor might once again prove to be, I don't know, useful is the right word, but relevant. That's the word I'm looking for. So, big goings on in November for World of Warcraft. Obviously, we just had a big announcement, big patch announcement that it's, a ways away, but nonetheless, something big happening. Now, speaking of anniversaries, this show just passed its 6th anniversary about a month or so ago. It's actually October the 12th. That's the actual anniversary date for Unshackled Fury. Nah, I didn't say anything. I don't know. I didn't really feel like, oh, the 6th. Ooh. I don't know that it was really that big of a deal. But I am coming up on 100 episodes. And that I do think is an important milestone. When you're kind of grinding out some of those, mid-40, mid-50 episodes, you're like, well, we make 100? I don't know. But that's coming up. That will be the next episode. My plan is to have that out in 3 weeks. As you may have noticed, longtime listeners, I've switched from a 2-week to a 3-week format. That was only temporary. That will only be temporary after the 100th episode, which I hope to bring something fun. I hope the 100th episode will have something a little extra. Working on it. If it, listen, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But hoping to have something fun for that 100th episode. I will be taking my customary break over the holidays, coming back probably January-ish, and that will resume the every other week schedule that I know all of you have come to know and love. So just wanted to wish everyone a happy anniversary and catch folks up on that because, it's good to know your history, right? Well, good to know it to a point. And on that note, why don't we go ahead and jump back into our rage portion of the show? Let's go. Let's rage. So don't worry. I'll get to the 9.2 stuff in just a little bit. Just be patient. We'll get there, I promise. But first, I feel I need to make, a public service announcement, if you will. In the lead up to the 9.2 announcement, and even subsequent to its announcement and seeing and hearing commentary about it since its announcement, there's a shared theme I keep reading and hearing about, where, you think about where we've been and what we've been doing as players, right? We've now reached the afterlife, and we're dealing with some big, huge cosmic forces. This is some major shit going down, right? But I constantly hear and see people talking about how they're tired of the cosmic scene, tired of this. What's bigger? What's badder? What's the more insane thing that we could do? And they're tired of it. They're tired of it. They want to go back to, I want to go back to fighting gnolls. I want to go back to Azeroth and just doing, the stuff that we used to do. And I want to tell a simpler story, a quieter story. I want to be involved in something a little more intimate. And listen, you people, listen to me. You've got to give up the ghost. Those days are gone. Now, yeah, I know what Dan User said. I know what he said, and we'll get to that. Places left unexplored. I heard what he said. Listen to me. Get on board the ride. Get on board the new ride. Don't be the guy in the electric car saying it's too advanced and you want to get back in the Model T. Don't do that. Don't do that. Let's see the wild shit. Let's see how crazy they can get. Listen to me. This Celestial has left the intergalactic stable. There's no going back. People will get bored going back to little tiny quiet stories. You know, running around saving one family in a village. People are going to get, listen. Could you do some interesting, introspective, quiet moments with those kinds of stories? Yes, you absolutely can. But you can do it on the face of another planet. You could, sure, there's ways you could tell small stories with giant gods. I'm sure of it. I don't know how, but I'm sure you could do it. Satisfy that itch. Listen, there's another game I'm looking at over here, and it's got fucking cat people. And it's going off like gangbusters. You can't tell me that's a quiet story, cat people. How the fuck did they get that? Listen to me. Give up the ghost of the old days. You want the old days? Go play Classic. It's there for the taking. You love it. Go get it. As for the rest of us, I want to see it all. I want it to get bigger, badder, crazier, more insane. Around every turn, I want a god, an old god, a new god, a rebirth god, a god of a god. Who knows? But just give it to me. And the rest of you, get on board this train. I'm telling you, get on board. There is no going back. All right. Now that I have sufficiently put my foot in my mouth, because I'm sure at a later date this will come back to haunt me, let's go ahead and jump into our news, because holy shit, do we have a lot to talk about. Now before I get to the 9.2 stuff, the good stuff, the stuff you want, let's talk about patch 9.1.5. Just humor me for a quick second here. Patch went live about 2 weeks ago now, back on the 2nd. Had a lot of quality of life improvements, getting alts up to speed. You know, we got maw skips, we got covenant swapping, we got all that jazz. I finally got to get in and do solo island expeditions. I was very happy with that. Let me say, I have looked forward to that since BFA came out. And I never understood why we never had them. But I really enjoyed it. Now, I kind of almost blew the first one because at first, you know, I jump off the ship, I'm running around, and I'm thinking it's like the old days, and I'm rushing. I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna mine this node, I'm gonna kill this dude. Oh, where's a rare? Boom, let's go get that guy. Let's blow this up. On and on. And while I'm doing that, I'm noticing that there are no horde resources at all. I'm like, wait a minute. Why am I rushing? There's nobody else here. This really is a private tour of this island. I'm going to take my sweet ass time. So I mount up, start riding around, checking stuff out. I'm looking for things. I'm like, there's a guy over here. There's a guy over here. Well, what are these parts here? I'm going to pick up these. And then out of nowhere, horde team shows up. All right, let's get this stuff. And I'm like, oh shit. And then I panicked, and then I got it done really fast, and it was actually very easy. So for all of us who have waited for solo island expedition queuing, it's here and it's fabulous, and I probably will spend too much time doing that instead of leveling my alts, which is what I'm supposed to do. But I also have potentially a way around that, and we'll get to that. During this same time that 9.1.5 was going live, we also had something that came out that was really important, I think, for the game and the community and elsewhere. So through all the troubles that we have seen and people have been going through, not just long term, but more recently with Blizzard and since July when all hell broke loose, really. One of the people that we hadn't heard from was Ian Hazzikostas, the director of our beloved game. I think I would like to think that he, like myself and many others, wanted to give time and space to the people who were more directly affected by this or had things to say that were relevant and not just another dude chiming in. And he finally gave an interview to VentureBeat. It was about 2 weeks ago. I do recommend that you read all of the way through this because once again, I genuinely believe that Ian Hazzikostas is one of the greatest leaders that this game could have. Is he the only one? No. But is he a really good one? Yes, he is. People will debate that. People will be very angry by that statement because, he didn't balance this or they made this decision or borrowed power, yada, yada, yada. Those critiques are fair. But where I'm coming from on this is that attitudinally, at least, I think he speaks with such a steady hand. And he talked about the changes that they've made more recently, how their philosophies are changing, how, what made sense. We just talked about 17-year anniversary. What made sense 15 years ago doesn't necessarily make sense for a game today. And there are always lessons to be learned, things to adapt to. It's like what I talked about earlier. Come aboard for this ride. I'm serious. Come aboard for this ride. Sometimes change is hard. Listen, I'll be the first one to tell you. Change is hard, and I am resistant to that change. I think it's part of my sort of like ADHD kicking in. I don't know. It's the need for routine and things that don't change. Like, it's hard. I get it. But the way that he describes this in terms of how, as a team, you have to move forward, as a community, how you have to be more inclusive and understand that, the way things look through a certain lens at a certain time, that evolves. And we have to evolve with it. He also talked about things like cross-faction rating and, he teased the 9.2 announcement just saying that it was coming soon. And, here we have it now. But it was a really good interview. And for those of you that may have missed it or just kind of look through the highlights, I recommend taking the time. It's not terribly long, but I do recommend taking the time to look through it and just kind of get a sense of the mind of one of the leaders of this ship, because there's a lot of unseemly things happening. The ship is, I think, starting to make a course correction, a genuine course correction. And this is one of the people at the top. So when you get a chance, VentureBeat, article with Ian Hazzikostas, talks game future and current soul searching is the link here, which I like that, soul searching. That's a lot of what's going on. No pun intended, with everything else that's going on right now. Also during this same time period with 9.1.5 going live is the introduction of the World of Warcraft Community Council. So this was announced. There was an official post and a little welcome video. Ian was in that video. Morgan Day, a few other devs were in that one, including the director of WoW Classic, I believe. And they talked about how Blizzard gets tons of feedback. And we know this. They get tons of feedback. And they're going to open up a new opportunity to help direct, I think, some of that feedback, where players, all of us, anybody, can apply to be part of this community council. And they're taking at least 100 people. They didn't say how many total. They just said they were taking at least 100. I have heard that there were thousands of applications within like the first couple days or week or whatever it was. As you can imagine, I'm sure a lot of people want a spot and a piece of this. If you get selected, if you go out and apply and you tell them all about yourself, your experiences, what you're interested in, you will potentially be chosen for a 1-year term. So this isn't like a lifetime judicial appointment or even a 2 or 4-year term. It's a 1-year term. So if you get in, that will be your tour of duty, so to speak. They're looking for folks from all walks of life. So even if you are not, a top-level mythic raider, right? Maybe you like transmog. Maybe you're a pet battler. Maybe you're an RPer. Whatever your jam is, they're looking for you. They're looking to cast a pretty wide net here. And eventually what these positions will have access to is what appears to be a brand new forum where there will be conversation between the chosen players and the devs. It'll be public. It looks like it'll be public so we can see what's going on. Now, I'm not entirely clear how this is going to work because in reading this thing, it kind of, I don't know. It kind of looks like an opportunity for some people to cause a little bit of trouble just depending on how the forums work. Maybe it's just, we're having dialogue and we keep it open. But where I really think that this will help, if it is kind of what I think it's supposed to be like, this will bring in more players that are not influencers. Talked a lot on this show about how I think people in positions, and I'm not saying I'm small potatoes, so I'm not saying me, but I'm saying real influencers, people that are, 100,000 plus subscriber range, big folks. What they say carries a lot of weight, but there's only a handful of these people. There's millions of players. And so what this does is it expands the tent that they're trying to bring people under. There's a larger movement within the company in the game to bring in more voices, inclusion, diversity, all that kind of stuff. And this may be an opportunity to branch out and have a version of that as well, where it's not just, a handful of the same people in the same places making noise. It's an opportunity for a wider range of folks to be involved, more directly involved with folks, not one-on-one it looks like, but, as close as we can get sort of in this digital age. So, if you are interested, I don't believe it's closed. I haven't seen anything about it being closed. If it's closed by the time I got to this, well, shit, that's on me. But I don't see anything about when this will be closed off. So if you get a chance, there is a post up. It is just introducing the World of Warcraft Community Council, communication between players and devs. This was only about 12 days ago. So if you're interested, sign up. I mean, what the hell? What does it cost you? I'm not doing it, just in case anybody's wondering. I am not doing it. Anybody from my raid team who listened to this who was like, Berzerker should do it, I am not fucking doing it. So if one of y'all want to jump in, be my guest. I think there are people that are better positioned to comment on these things from inside the community than I. I have an outlet here. I can do this stupid little circus that I put out here. The rest of the people may not have, as quality an outlet as this. So get in there. Get your application. Have some fun. Do good community work. All right. 9.2. Eternity's End. Here at last. Finally announced after much speculation. Everybody, we kind of... I think there was some agreement on where we were going based on hints and clues and things. And we kind of knew generally what we would be doing. But I don't think anybody was really prepared for what we saw. So first off, World of Warcraft Twitter account tweeted out this tweet that just had these crazy looking runes and some spooky music in the background. And we were left to wonder, okay, well, Clearly something's up here. There's a puzzle to be solved here. There wasn't really. But something was afoot. And we knew, all right, soon. Ian had said in that interview that things were coming soon. 9.1.5 was launched. We always have a PTR or something going up. We'd seen that that directory that Wowhead and some other folks keep an eye on when a patch is about to go live or something's going to get announced. They saw a notification there. Like, all of the signs were coming, and boom, get the fancy secret tweet. They immediately followed up and said, don't worry about it. 10 a.m., 11/11, we'll have something going out. We'll have the next dev video going up. Clue you in on what is going on. It was not a live stream. It was just a video. It was kind of a short video, to be honest with you. 11 minutes is a chunk of time. But I will preface everything that I'll talk about here by saying that I was surprised that we didn't hear even more. Like, this video that we got, it felt very much like a BlizzCon package video, and it was almost like the setup, and then there would be a panel afterwards where you just have a solid hour of people talking about things. Following this announcement video, we did see other interviews pop up, and it looks like there was a global attempt to get out there, because there was interviews here in the States with Game Rant. There was Inven, who is overseas, NGA, Gamer Braves, and Millennium. I think Millennium is the French one. Gamer Braves, I think, is Indonesia. NGA and Inven, I'm not quite sure. I think Inven might be Korean. Not sure about NGA, but there was a global attempt to try to get some of this. So some of the information that we've got was Google translated. So take some of this with a grain of salt, because not all of it was in English, and sometimes there's a little bit of weird crossover, but I think we've got the gist of where we're going. So, announcement video hits, and we see there's this crazy new zone, and we got a new raid coming. There's a bunch of critters and characters and all this wild stuff going on. There was also very clearly there was a very clear difference, I will say, in the video itself, in that it wasn't the same people that we always hear from. There was a very diverse cast, let's say, of developers and writers and the whole kit and caboodle, faces that we've never seen before, and, different backgrounds, clearly on display. Blizzard, for better or worse, making an attempt to diversify the cast in these videos and the voices and the people that we see. Because if they're working on the game, why not bring them in? Because those are the people that are going to be most passionate about it. So it was great to see that. Great to see that change. Great to see some new faces. One of the best kinds of panels that we would have at BlizzCon, and I saw this comment somewhere else as well, is that, yeah, we get the big ones with Ian. Cool. Love it. No problem. Yeah, we get ones with Steve Denuser and Christy Golden, the story folks. Taryn Gregory and them. Badass. Love it. But it's some of the smaller or lesser well-known panels where it's the people doing the work, the nose to the grindstone work, the actual hands-on folks that maybe we don't know their names, but those are the people that know the most about the thing that we're talking about. They're very passionate about it. These are the creators. Those folks are so great to hear from. And so seeing those folks in a video, good move. I think it was a good move. So 9.2. It's up. It's out. Where are we going? Well, we're going to Zereth Mortis. Zereth Mortis. This was a land that was kind of hinted at in various places. We didn't really have a sense of what it is. We've been told that the Shadowlands is like this kind of crazy offshoot of something larger, that it's kind of like this infinite space, that all this stuff can happen. Well, Zereth Mortis, as is being described to us, is kind of like the workshop of the first ones. The first ones being this other super intergalactic pantheon of giant folk. This workshop is where the Shadowlands were created. And so this is now even above and beyond wildness in terms of where the Shadowlands that we've been so far, those lands that we've been, it's a level beyond, just in terms of its sort of insane, high level, as I say, mystical, higher form of magic place. And I get it. We're getting to the higher levels of the cosmos, and sometimes that's a bit to chew on. But I'm really digging it. I'm really digging it. Again, I want to see the heights of this thing. I want to see how big and wild and crazy it can get. Zereth Mortis has been described to us as this is where the afterlife is built. This is where all of it comes from. And its place in things is that it's giving us a first look at these founders. And what they say is the sort of the balance of power that governs the entire universe. That Zereth Mortis is potentially in the heart of the universe itself, which is kind of a wild thought. This land, as they describe, it has this sort of geometric vibe about it, but also it's married to this very grounded, earthy design. There's water and flora and fauna and that whole thing. And it was at one time in use, and then it looks like it was abandoned and it was handed over to caretakers. So now here we are, where Zoval, the jailer, has invaded this place, right? He's gone to this sepulcher, and that is our new raid, the sepulcher of the first ones. And he's looking to unmake reality. And so now we kind of have an understanding that Zereth Mortis, this place we're going, is this forge, this giant workshop. And it has this ability to make and, I guess, unmake reality. And so now we're on our way to try to stop the jailer while we're there. When we get there, we're going to meet some new folks. There are some brokers, but not the way that we know them. They're called the Enlightened. And there are also these crazy other looking sort of automatons, and they are called the Automa. There's different kinds, different shapes, different purposes, and they speak in this musical language, and they played some samples of it. And it's tied to this runic language. And that runic language is what was tweeted to us in that teaser tweet. And what we were told is that over the course of time, during our play through 9.2, through Eternity's End, we, the players, should we so choose, will learn to decipher that language, or at least that runic language. And it's going to unlock opportunities for different things as we move along. So, is it gated content? Yeah, it's gated content. All right, fine. But given the right pace and given appropriate reward, that could be fun. But it's interesting because it's not something that they've tried before. This is not something we've ever seen. They are definitely going way out there on this one. With Zereth Mortis, they talked about how they wanted to blow out everything that they thought was possible, anything that they wanted to do. I mean, it's clear that they're trying to go with some really high concept stuff here. Just you think about, as I mentioned earlier, fighting gnolls and getting candles from kobolds to this shit. It's so far out there. It's wild. It's insane. But I love it. I love what they're trying to do here. I know it's not going to be popular with some folks, that they're like, fuck this. This is this went too far. I don't care about this. I will come back in 10.0, and that's okay. That's okay. You either are on board for this intergalactic space ride, or you are like, I'm not doing it. I'm gonna go do something else. But me, I'm with it. Let's ride. This unlockable language, it could also be tied to flying at some point. So just in case you're like, fuck it, I'm not gonna do it. Well, if you like flying and flight paths, I think specifically flight paths, that could be a reason to do it. Check my notes on that. I could change, or I could have a misunderstanding. But I'm gonna guess that you're gonna wanna do that. A new raid. So let's get to that. New raid. Sepulcher of the First Ones. We knew we were heading to this. We didn't really know what it was. We just knew that it existed and it was important and that we had to go there and do some shit. Well, now we know what it is. Sepulcher of the First Ones. This is going to be an 11 boss raid, but it's going to be split up a little bit, at least initially. So some of the bosses that we know about so far, there are going to be some Dreadlords. We've seen those around, including Mal'Ganis, who, if you go back to all the stuff with Arthas and the Scourge and becoming the Lich King and all that, played a very important role there. And it was kind of a blink and you miss it cameo so far in this expansion, but around. We're going to fight something that looks kind of like an armored Algalon. If you ever got to see that in Ulduar. And if you haven't, go do it. It's amazing. It's we're super overpowered for it, but it's a really cool fight to see. So we're going to fight something like an armored version of Algalon. God help us. We're going to see some sort of proto-death pantheon. They've given hints that there's a sort of a portion of this workshop where maybe there's trial versions of like the Archon or Denathrius or something like that, and we're gonna fight them. So maybe that's our council style fight, because we've got to have one of those. Then we get to somewhere in there there'll be other bosses, but then the 8th boss of this new raid, Sepulcher of the First Ones, will be Anduin. So we are going to fight Anduin. I think we all kind of figured this was coming. This isn't a hallucinogen-induced Rathion fight right out of the gate. No, it's going to be 8 bosses in. And whatever happens here, whether we save him, whether he's trashed, I mean, who knows what's going to happen just yet. But whatever it is, it's important enough where they feel the need to essentially gate the raid at that point to start. Where once the raid releases the first week, we will only be able to go up to Anduin. I love my raid team, but I'm going to guess that we will not get all the way up to Anduin and through Anduin in that first week. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying we might not do it. But there are groups that will, and there's something there that plays out that's so important that we have to break up the raid and wait until the next week to face the final 3 bosses, including the Jailer, who is the last and final boss. One of the things that they've said about that break is that they need time to play out between those 2, I guess, portions of the raid. They need that week because something has to play out. There has to be a passage of time. Now, whether that's because somebody's got to heal up, or whether we got to have a funeral, or whether we got to do who knows what, there's a reason for it, and I'm sure we'll find it out very soon. God bless the data miners. They have said that the Anduin fight will be a very, very complex boss. That the Jailer will also have some crazy elements to it, and they're saying that it is the craziest boss the team has done. So that's fun. The raid environment itself, again, they wanted to challenge themselves. What they talked about is they wanted to challenge themselves to think outside of the box and go, okay, well, what could we do different with this raid? And so it sounds like they've essentially made it this enormous place, this area kind of outside on its own, where, when we typically have gone into raids, example I think was Nathria, and Sanctum of Domination, right, with Torghast. Like, those are physical places rooted somewhere, where instead, with the sepulcher of the first ones, we're going to be going to some just other place. And so it's so large that we're going to have to take flight paths in order to move around. And that there's just this scope and scale to it that we haven't seen before. And if it's one thing, other criticisms aside, that this team and Shadowlands has done well, I think, are the raids. I think the raids have all been phenomenal, difficult as they are. I think these raids have not just been well designed, but the environments have been phenomenal. And for them to continue to challenge themselves in this way, I think is a continued step in the right direction. I love it. And from the preview so far, I can't wait to step in there and see it myself. One of the other big things about the raid is something that they're bringing back. So they are bringing something back, which are tier sets. If you remember, in days of old, we used to have tier sets that were specific to our classes. They are going to have a sort of combination of class fantasy and zone aesthetics. So they did post some concept art and a couple of, it looked like, in-game screenshots where you could see this armor. I liked the concept armor for the warrior better than I like what I'm seeing so far, but hey, it's, it's all right. I think I'm just jealous of the Death Knights most of the time. The Death Knights get all the really cool stuff, and, we'll see. We'll see how that goes for the warriors, but they are bringing back tier sets. There will be some sort of bonuses, right? You get, 2-piece, 3-piece, 4-piece, 5-piece, whatever. However many pieces, there'll be certain bonuses. I don't know that we've seen any of those yet. Granted, we're just a couple of days in. This announcement was only made a few days ago, so things will be changing rapidly, updating quickly. So even by the time you hear this, who knows? There could be new interviews dropping Monday morning, and you're like, Berzerker, that's old news. And I go, yes, I know. Trust me, I know. Along with the tier sets that will be dropping in Sepulcher of the first ones. Tier sets will also be available through the Great Vault. So, hooray. Keep doing that. It's Great Vault. I don't know that it's played out as positively as everybody might have hoped. I was high on it at first. I think it's good early on, and then it kind of craps out as somebody who's now gotten the same exact trinket like 3 weeks in a row. I already have it. Let's go. 9.2 will also have a Forge of Creation, they're calling this, and a new currency. So sort of a companion to getting your tier sets through raids and the Great Vault. At some point, they're not saying when, but at some point during patch 9.2, this Forge of Creation will be available, however that is, and this new currency, and you will be able to use PvP or dungeon items and transform those into tier set pieces. So if that's your jam, you do that on the side. I know a lot of Mythic Plus people on my team, and that's a good way to get upgraded gear. I still think the best gear ought to come from raids, but I am a snob. I'm a raid snob. So I have two minds about it. It's sort of like bad luck protection is what they call it. And that I understand. That I get. So if you got to run a dungeon and you got what you need and it gets you that tier piece that's finally giving you that badass thing that you need for a bonus, then let's do it. Why not? Because along with that, we're also going to be able to sport 2 legendary items at some point. One of the clarifications that they've made is that eventually during this patch, we'll be able to wear 2 legendaries. One of them will have to be our Covenant legendary or a Covenant legendary, and then another of your choice. We'll have to unlock that at some point. But going into that mini game, right, with every time we have just raid gear now, tier sets, it's that mini game of, all right, well, what are the 2 that I'm shooting for, and what's the raid pieces that I need? And that dance can go on forever. And so good luck to all of you sim crafters out there and everybody else, because that's whole new layer of complexity to that game. But yes, that's the new raid. Sepulcher of the First Ones. I think that so far it's wild and it's out there and it's, you know, it's high level stuff, and I'm with it. Again, understand that not everybody is going to be, but you know, I'll tell you what. I'll be your guinea pig. I'll go in there and I'll tell you whether it's good or not. Trust me. I'm an expert on these things. So that raid will release, date unknown. My guess is March. I think patch might hit in March. You know, we got that Sylvanas book, right, that got moved around a couple times. So I'm going to say March. So raid will come out that initial week, 8 bosses, and then difficulties after that will release in weeks subsequent to the third week. It looks like the third week after we'll see the full raid. Other changes. So we had the legendaries. You don't have to run a Torghast anymore for materials. Everything that you will need will come out of Zereth Mortis. So if you're tired of running that place, you won't have to do it anymore. There will be 2 more levels to upgrade on your legendaries. So it looks like everything you'll need, you won't necessarily have to do through Torghast. I think Ian was the one who made a comment about this, that they recognize that people are probably not going to want to just keep pulling that thing forever. So they are making those changes. For me, and I mentioned this earlier about alts and my laziness, and, you know, I should be getting this stuff through, but, you know, life and things. A level 60 boost will be available. We're going to have a level 60 boost for $60. $1 a level, I guess. So if you like me, if you're like me, can't get that last 10 levels out, you pay $60. And all right, I'm in. So that's coming down the pike. There will not be any additional renown. So once you capped out at 80, you're good. Hooray. Yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised they even made it to 80. To be quite honest with you, 80 levels of that was a fucking lot. It was a lot. 60 kind of made sense, maybe 50, but 80 is, you're just reaching for stuff at that point. Like, all right, level 79. Here's a bag of fruit. Level 80. Well, you fucking made it. Here's some twine. Like the rewards really, you know, not as exciting as they once were. They did talk about how in 9.2, and I assume honestly from here on out, they're going to be making other changes similar to ones that they've talked about regarding questline language, names of characters, in-game art assets, whatever it is, stuff that the team, the community have talked about changing or feel needs an update for whatever reason. They did confirm those changes will continue in 9.2. And again, I assume that that's just going to be kind of a constant at this point, because World of Warcraft is like is what I call in my employment a living document. You know, it never really is set in stone. It just kind of evolves, and so we're gonna keep going down that road. Some folks didn't pay attention to anything else in the video except for one thing, which was apparently there's going to be a dancing mini game in the Dark Moon Fair that looks like Dance Dance Revolution or one of those other ones, and I know there are some people that just completely blanked out once they saw that. That could be fun. So if Dark Moon Fair is your jam, have fun with that. They also mentioned that Tazavesh will be splitting into 2. You know, mega dungeons getting easier. No problem there. But out of all of this, new land, new raid, new folks, new pets, new mounts, more legendaries, tier sets, whatever, all that stuff. The biggest thing for me, out of all of this, the comments made by Steve Danuser at the beginning and at the end of the announcement video. Now, one, Blizzard has confirmed that this is the sort of the finale of the Shadowlands. This is the last major content patch as it relates to the story that we've been playing out. So that's it. So Could there be a 9.25? Yeah. Could there be a 9.3? It's possible that, you know, they're not closing the door on that, but my feeling is that's probably just to be nimble. I don't think that there's really any plan to. So credit to Shieldwald out there, Jason Lucas from the Starting Zone. He and I had a back and forth on Twitter some many months ago, and he assured me that there would be no 9.3, and you were correct, sir. This is why you're big cheese and I'm just down here in the mud. But Dan Newser talked about not just like the conclusion of Shadowlands or whatever. He started talking about how there are storylines that began in Warcraft 3 and were told through many of the World of Warcraft expansions that we've played. And how they looked at Shadowlands as a drama in 3 acts, that this is the 3rd and final act, and that this serves, this is the direct quote, serves as the final chapter of one book of the Warcraft saga. And it's no mistake that during this, they were showing clips of, you know, what happened with Arthas and Sylvanas and, you know, all of this stuff that we've played out over all these years. And that this will represent the end of many of those storylines. They repeated this or something akin to it at the end of the video. How this, you know, is the end of one book of Warcraft, and we're going to be starting the next book of Warcraft. And depending on who you are, and depending on how you read that ink blot, that can mean a lot of different things. Either this is the end of the Warcraft that you know forever. This could just be the end of a portion of some very important stories. This could be the beginning of something new and amazing. This could be, you know, the rebuilding of Azeroth altogether. This could be the WoW 2.0 that people have been screaming about forever. This could be all kinds of things. But let's start with what I think are kind of the obvious threads. Arthas, the Lich King, Sylvanas, the Scourge, Death Knights even. Icecrown Citadel. If you recall, right, not hard to, it was pretty amazing. The cinematic for this expansion all started at Icecrown. It all started at Icecrown. Sylvanas ascending those steps, talking about that place. The Scourge were around. It just, to me, you don't set all that up there and just throw it away. I think we come back there. And I could very well see where maybe it's the destruction of Icecrown Citadel. Maybe all of Northrend changes. The Scourge are gone. Maybe this is the pathway to a renewed Azeroth. Maybe Sylvanas, you know, disappears in a puff of smoke, never to be heard from again. I don't know how you cleanly tie up a lot of that stuff, but they talk about how with her soul returned to her, which oh God, the redemption arc. You could argue that she hasn't had herself. She hasn't been herself because she hasn't had her soul since Warcraft 3. So that's now all of these crazy, awful things that she's done, but also some good stuff that she's done for the Forsaken, right? But all the stuff that she's done, she hasn't done it as her complete self. Well, now she's her complete self. I may not know exactly what to do about that. So it sounds like Uther is going to be somewhat of a mentor to her. And does that lead to a reckoning with Arthas? I think we all are guessing that that's Arthas' soul that's been pounded into Anduin's sword. And maybe we have a breaking of that sword like we had with Frostmourne and a release of the souls. And so Arthas is like King Tyrannus when we defeat the Lich King and Icecrown, and we could have a whole roundabout with that. I feel like that's too obvious. And if I can come up with it, that's probably not what they're going to do, because they're a lot more creative and smarter than I am. But maybe we're heading down that road. Uther being a mentor to Sylvanas of all people it's a hell of a turn. And That'll be interesting to see play out. I know that there are a bunch of you sadists out there that are like, I want Soval to win. I want the jailer to win. I want to remake everything. Listen, gods be with you. That is not what I want to happen. I want to stop him. I don't want everything to be unmade or remade. You know, again, go play Classic. You want it the way it was pre-Cataclysm, go play Classic. That's why it's there. I'd like to see a progression of the story that doesn't include that, but perhaps a reckoning or maybe an undoing for certain folks. You know, maybe they can go back on their regrets of their mistakes. Could be interesting. There is a new store mount, which often serves as a hint for what's coming down the line, possibly a 10.0. I know there's a bunch of videos and people speculated about this and on. So watch this shit. But it does feel like the sun-warmed fur line, as they're calling it, it does seem very out of place for World of Warcraft. It does not feel to me like something that we've seen before, except it does kind of have a Silvermoon, Sunwell, Quel'Danaz vibe to it. Like, there's, you know, that warm emerald kind of thing going on. It feels like it's in there somewhere. Is it possible that maybe the Sunwell plays a role here? I think the last time we saw it, Alaria was getting kicked out, or the Void folks were getting kicked out because they almost corrupted the Sunwell, and they're like, God damn it, we just got this thing back, and you're already trying to fuck it up. Get out of here. Could that play a role in, I don't know, fighting some death magic, and that opens up something with the light, and Turalian shows up and does something crazy? Who knows? Who knows? Could be heading down that route. But the statements that have been made so far, they are both, in my mind, ominous and hopeful. Because in the interviews that I've read, Ian, Steve, all these folks, they claim to be talking about the next 10 years of Warcraft being discussed inside the halls of Blizzard HQ. I can't even think about a week from now, let alone 10 years from now. So if they're planning that far down, you're talking, 3, 4, 5 expansions worth of material. They're thinking out a long, long way. And maybe this is where finally they wrap up, as we've talked about. A lot of the storylines in World of Warcraft, right, they stem from the RTS games and from the minds of the people who used to be around. Now, I know that there are a lot of longtime Blizzard employees, right? But there are a lot of the longtime story and franchise development folk that are not around. The people who were the progenitors of a lot of the things that we play and love and see, they're not around anymore. And as time goes on, creations like Anduin, right? Anduin, for the most part, is Christy Golden's child, I think, more than anybody's. But came in World of Warcraft. Those kinds of characters. Garrosh, right? Garrosh coming in and being this whole force of nature. Right? Those kinds of storylines that were a little rarer to come by, those are going to become more the norm. And so, yes, I think the old World of Warcraft, the old Blizzard, if you want to call it that, I think that is, as time goes on, being put to rest. Where those are the good times that we had then. Those are the stories that we told. And now we're going to move on to other good times and other stories that we're going to talk about in the future that I think it's exciting because we don't know what they are. We don't know really what it's based on. It could come out of anywhere. And that's the one thing I've always counted on from Blizzard, is to keep me guessing. The folks at Warcraft, to keep me going, I don't know what's coming next because they just pulled this thing out and I had no idea. Okay. We knew Sepulchre, something with Sepulchre was coming. A lot of people were like, Zerath Mortis is coming. We had no idea that it was going to look like this. We didn't know about all this other crazy stuff. That's what I like. Keeps me guessing. I don't want to know what's coming. I like surprises. Anybody that's listened to the show long enough knows. I try to stay away from spoilers because I like surprises. And so as long as they keep digging into that creativity and, bringing in other folks that can help expand that, I'm down with it. Yeah. It's sad. I'm never going to get my king back. Varian's gone, right? I don't know what's going to happen to Anduin. I hope he has a long and storied career, right? But there are other characters and other storylines that I can go back and play if I want to, right? They're not in the present, and in some ways that's sad to me, but in other ways, you have to let go of that to embrace whatever's coming down the line, and I have a feeling there's going to be some more good stuff coming down the line. I really thought Shadowlands was going to land higher in terms of, I don't know, favorite expansions of all time. Some of that I do believe is colored by the fact we've had a pandemic and, you know, hell breaking loose at every turn at Activision Blizzard. You know, they could have been more nimble. Things could have happened, but that's coulda, woulda, shoulda. You know, we don't really know. But I have faith. I still have the faith. I still believe in the team. I still think that they have right people in charge working on the game. So we'll see. We'll see what comes. But very interesting. Very interesting to see what's coming. 9.2 probably got a handful of months left. So enjoy 9.1.5. Get your alts up. Speaking for myself, I probably need to get on that. But we have some high times on the high seas ahead. And who knows what's in store. So speaking of leadership, by the way, there have been some changes in leadership once again for Blizzard. If you recall, some time ago, J. Allen Brack departed the company amidst all of the allegations and the really awful shit that came to light. In his place, two people, so we had co-leaders, two people were promoted to take over for J. Allen Brack. One of them was Jen O'Neill. The other one was Mike Ibarra. Well, Jen O'Neill has left. She went to go start up another nonprofit, Women in Games International. And Blizzard, it's like, oh, good luck. We're going to throw some money at that too. I had a little discussion within my raid team about whether this is unfortunate or just kind of business as usual, I suppose. And to give my raid leader some credit, it is unfortunate in the sense that when you are trying to go for as much diversity in your leadership as you can, it's unfortunate when you have a woman in such a high position and she doesn't last more than a few months. That is unfortunate because that, it doesn't look good. Now, we don't know the circumstances. I'll say that. We don't know the circumstances. It could have always been temporary. Who knows? It was like a, stopgap measure. We got to do something. Here's what we're going to do. But sometimes things just don't look good. Now, is it good? Does it matter? I think it depends on the lens through which you view the situation. Mike Ibarra, we know, is very passionate about Warcraft. There's a whole kerfuffle about him and his team doing carries and only World of Warcraft, man. But it's unfortunate, at least immediately in my mind, is it seemed like Jen O'Neill is a great leader, and would have been of continued great value to World of Warcraft, to Blizzard, to all of us. So obviously wish her luck. But that does, in the end, I do agree with you, Baron. I think that is unfortunate. Along with her taking off, we also have some Bobby Kotick news. God, who doesn't love Bobby Kotick news? I think the biggest news is that I now make, theoretically, more money. I have a higher salary than Bobby Kotick, which is insane. In a message to Activision Blizzard employees, Bobby Kotick put out a letter, and among several things that were announced, one of them is that he has essentially cut his total compensation to the state minimum of what he can make in his position of $62,500 a year, which is pretty wild. They also launched a few other initiatives. There's, zero tolerance, harassment policy, non-retaliation. They're going to increase the percentage of women and non-binary people in the workforce by 50%, from approximately 23% to 33% within 5 years, and invest $250 million over 10 years to accelerate opportunities for diverse talent. I'm not entirely sure how you're going to accomplish that, because that is tricky. So we'll see how that plays out. That's a whole other discussion about widening your applicant pool versus who you hire. That's kind of two different things. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. They also waived mandatory arbitration of sexual harassment and discrimination claims, which was one of the demands, I believe, of the workers. And there were a few other changes there. And overall, good changes, positive things that needed to happen. So is 17, this is another thing, is they made another couple of changes related to temporary employees were like, they're raising their minimum pay to $17 an hour. Is that enough in California? No. Is that enough down where they are in Irvine? Hell no. But maybe there's somewhere else. I don't know. But they did make some other changes aside to the Bobby Kotick stuff. They made some changes related to temporary employees where they're getting paid holidays, paid sick time. They increased the minimum pay, and they're providing them with what they're calling growth opportunities to participate in learning and development programs. That's all really positive stuff. So good to hear that. There was an earnings call as well. And let me tell you, Activision Blizzard is hurting. And that's really not much of a surprise. It's something that we've kind of talked about a few times, is that, yes, a lot of the really dirty things, dirty feeling things that the board of directors have done have been to drive profit. Well, guess what? Their fucking profit is down by a bunch. We go back to just February of this year. Activision Blizzard stock was $103 a share. It is now down to $69.69. 69. Oh, Lord. It's working. I think the pressure's working, because it's the only way that these people listen, is if their stock is worth less, they're panicking because shareholders are panicking. So, yes, take care of your employees better, and maybe people will start shitting on you. Stop harassing your people, and maybe things will get better. Hire more inclusive employees. Maybe the situation will just work out. Maybe. Maybe if you do these good things will happen. So big changes there. Welcome to see. Overall, Blizzard itself, in terms of monthly active users, World of Warcraft itself, they seem to be relatively healthy. It's going okay. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's kind of going okay. Along the lines of all of this, one last thing here. BlizzCon, in case you hadn't heard, BlizzConline 2022 was canceled. So as of right now, we have no BlizzCon to anticipate. They put out a statement saying that not only was it canceled for obvious reasons, but they're taking this opportunity to reimagine what a BlizzCon event of the future could look like. With the allegations that have come out, I dare say that they are probably less inclined to do in-person things, or if they do, they're going to put a hard lock on their employees not to do certain things, socializing and whatnot. Which to me, that's a double-edged sword. Just personally, it's clear that people got out of hand, and that's a big problem, and that can't be ignored. On the other hand, the times that I went to BlizzCon, it was a shitload of fun, and bumping into people that are known folk was a lot of fun as well. It made the experience to a great degree. Being able to do that and just rub elbows with folks, you're like, holy shit, I know you. It's like when I got my picture taken with Ian Hazakosis at a fucking food truck. Random stuff, but it was fun. And to take away those experiences, that's tough, but at the end of the day, I kind of understand. Maybe they end up doing more regional things where, hey, we have smaller style get-togethers at multiple locations around the country, around the globe. That could be something that they do. Get more participation. I think more people could do things if you didn't have to spend all the money on travel and hotel and tickets and all that mishigas. That's very difficult. But we'll see. We'll see. they're not giving up on it. I don't think they can. Everybody looks forward to BlizzCon, whatever form it takes. So let's see what they come up with. I do hope they keep the in-person ones because it's a lot of fun. Quite frankly, as a podcaster, it's like the only way to actually see people and network with stuff. And I'm not the biggest networker, and I feel terrible saying it that way, but it's like the only time when you can really see people. And I still believe in face-to-face contact. So sue me. Anyway, BlizzCon 2022 canceled, but we'll see something on the horizon. Hopefully early next year, mid next year. And we'll see. Maybe a year from now, we'll all have gotten together, had some fun, and we'll look forward to the next one. All right. Well, I think I said it all, and this will do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, you can always follow me and this show on Twitter at Berzerker Rage and unshackled_fury. You can also join our Discord, links for which are in the profile of the show on Twitter and the Warcraft Radio directory. Feel free to contact the show with your questions, comments, or otherwise by going to unshackledfury.com, and you can find this show wherever you get your podcasts. So once again, thank you for listening. Remember to keep your swords wet and your banners high, and we'll see you next time. Farewell.